our protagonist finds himself awakening in the body of a noble who's a complete failure. Liam. The shock of being in a child's body sends him into a panic. His father, though irritated by the outburst, happens to be in a decent mood and merely orders Liam to sit down and avoid being a disgrace, struggling to process the surreal situation. Liam convinces himself it must all be a dream and that he'll wake up soon. However, when the next morning arrives and he's still trapped as Liam Hamilton, it becomes clear he has no choice but to come to terms with his new reality. A little while later, his personal maid comes into his room to help him get dressed. Liam asks her a few questions and finds out that he's the fifth son of a count and that the party yesterday was to celebrate the birth of his new baby sister. Later that day, Liam is having a chat with his older brother, Bruno, to try and piece together a bit more about his current life. He finds out that Bruno is the fourth son of the Hamilton noble family, but they are on the verge of losing their status as nobility. Essentially, there's a rule designed to stop noble families from growing too arrogant. It dictates that every noble lineage must achieve something significant within 3 generations. If not, they lose their noble status and are downgraded to commoners. As it happens, the Hamilton family is now in its 3rd generation without any noteworthy achievements, which explains why their father and the eldest son, Albrecht, are so eager to make a meaningful contribution to society to secure their place as nobles. Bruno, on the other hand, doesn't really care if he ends up becoming a commoner because he's just a chill guy who doesn't give a freak. Liam is surprised by how nonchalant Bruno is about the whole situation, but to be honest, he doesn't really care either. He literally got here yesterday, so he doesn't know what to do with his life in the first place. When their tutor announces the start of magic lessons, the instant Liam hears the word magic, Liam excitedly asks if he'll learn to use magic. Surprised by his enthusiasm, Bruno mentions a collection of grimoires in the storeroom, but warns that most people lack the aptitude for magic. Still, the instructor encourages Liam to study, as understanding magic is valuable even without the ability to use it. Liam goes to find his maid and asks her to show him where the grimoires are. She leads him to the mansion study, and Liam is amazed by the sheer volume of knowledge present here. He looks through the shelves and finds a book about basic fire magic. He opens it and decides to try it out. After following the instructions in the book, Liam is able to create a flame on the tip of his finger, which is really impressive for a first attempt. Liam heads to his father's office to request permission to access the grimoire library, but his father, clearly uninterested in engaging with him, dismissively says Liam can do whatever he wants. While the exchange is somewhat discouraging, the key takeaway is that Liam now has permission to use the library. Over the following days, he dedicates himself to mastering all the basic elemental spells. In time, he becomes proficient enough to cast the spells without needing to reference the grimoire. Bruno is astonished because he can't use magic at all. He tells Liam he is amazing, and soon enough, he will be able to make a name for himself. However, Bruno is curious about Liam's motivations and asks him if he's trying so hard to learn magic because he wants to become the next family head. After all, that may make him a target for their elder brother, but Liam has no interest in the family politics of succession. He just thinks magic is cool. Having mastered all the beginner spells, Liam decides to move on to learning ice magic. However, as he's leaving the library, his father calls for him. It seems word of Liam's talent for magic has reached his father's ears, and despite showing little interest in him just a few days ago, his father is now suddenly very intrigued by him. He asks for a magic demonstration, so Liam shows him that he can cast magic without needing to open a grimoire. The Count is elated because he might be able to use Liam to secure their family's position. From now on, he tells Liam that he is allowed to use whatever resources he may need for his magic studies. Out of nowhere, a report arrives that a certain man has been spotted on Hamilton territory. The Count immediately commands the soldiers to mobilize and capture him. Judging by the urgency, this individual seems to pose a significant threat. However, that doesn't concern Liam, so he simply heads back into the forest to continue practicing his magic. While he's walking out into the woods, he finds a man sitting under a tree. The man seems a little on edge. Once he spots Liam, he asks if Liam is a member of the Hamilton family here to capture him. Liam confirms that he is indeed a member of the Hamilton family, but he has no interest in capturing him. He doesn't even know who the guy is to begin with. The man relaxes upon realizing that Liam isn't after him, but then he notices the grimoire in Liam's hands and asks if he's studying magic. Liam confirms and explains that he plans to keep practicing, as constant training is the best way to improve. Just as Liam is about to leave, the man stops him and asks if he's interested in learning a more efficient method of using magic. Intrigued, Liam presses him for details, and the man demonstrates a technique that enables him to wield 5 different types of magic simultaneously. Liam is deeply impressed, so the man offers him a quick magic lesson, which Liam eagerly accepts. The man is surprised by Liam's politeness, as nobles are typically known for their arrogance, though Liam is different, likely due to his recent reincarnation. For the first lesson, the man instructs Liam to draw 2 diagrams on the ground simultaneously. Liam follows the instructions and demonstrates a natural talent for it. The next challenge is expected to be much more difficult. The man instructs Liam to attempt casting 2 different spells simultaneously. Liam gives it a try, conjuring a flame cutter with his right hand and a fireball with his left. After visualizing the spells, he successfully casts them both at the same time on his very first attempt. The man is genuinely astonished, as it's incredibly rare for anyone to master this technique, especially on their first try. Encouraged by Liam's talent, the man urges him to push further and attempt casting 3 spells at once instead of 2. Liam gives it a try, and it seems to be working at first, but then his magic suddenly fizzles out, so Liam gets disappointed. However, the man assures him that he performed the technique properly, so the only reason the magic died out was because he doesn't have enough magic power in his body right now to sustain it. Casting multiple spells at once consumes an insane amount of magic power, so Liam just needs to learn to control his magic a little more to maintain the simulcast. For now, the man decides to give Liam a brief lesson on the nature of the technique. He asks Liam to sit down as he draws an illustration in the dirt. The drawing represents prime numbers, and the man explains that the multi-spell casting technique only works with these numbers. He admits he doesn't know why it works that way, but that's just how it is. Essentially, Liam can cast 1, 2, or 3 spells simultaneously, but attempting to cast 4 spells at once will fail, no matter what he tries. Right now, the man has a limit of 13 spells at once, which is unbelievably impressive. But honestly, he has enough magic power that he can easily go up to 16. However, due to the prime number rule, he can't activate any higher simulcasting until his magic power can accommodate 17 spells. Liam is currently 12. So the man is confident that with a solid training routine, Liam will be able to raise his magic power to great heights. To help him with that, the man offers him a special ring. The ring is essentially a colossal grimoire, packed with countless spells that Liam can study whenever he pleases. Excitedly, Liam slips the ring onto his finger, and over 300 spells flood into his young mind. Eager to test them out, he faces the forest and activates the wind shot spell, unleashing a powerful gust of wind. Thrilled with the result, he turns back to thank the man, only to realize the man has vanished without a trace. Just then, Liam's maid shows up and warns him that it's dangerous to be out in the woods alone right now. Apparently, there's a suspicious man on the loose, so she tells him to be careful about talking to strangers. But that aside, she came here to give him a grimoire his father wants him to have, so she hands him the book and walks off to return to the mansion. The man suddenly reappears behind Liam, prompting Liam to ask where he had gone just a moment ago. The man explains that he never actually left. He was using invisibility magic to stay hidden, as it's crucial that no one discovers him here. Moving on, he comments on how fascinating the grimoire Liam has just acquired and offers to teach him something new. He instructs Liam to open the grimoire and attempt summoning a spirit while wearing the ring he had just given him. When he summons a fire spirit, it gets absorbed into the ring. He does the same with all the other elemental spirits so he can ask for their help later. But by the time he's done, he realizes that the man is gone, and this time he won't be coming back. Before he left, he wrote a message for Liam in the dirt and told him, Keep training your magic, and you will surely become a great mage in the future. And by the way, don't snitch on me. If anyone asks, I was never here. Liam doesn't know much about the man, but there's no denying that he gained more knowledge in one afternoon than he could have ever acquired on his own. For that reason, he will always regard the man with deep respect as his master. A month after meeting his master, Liam has improved significantly in his magic skills through consistent training. Bruno is astonished to find that Liam has produced white charcoal, a difficult and valuable material requiring extreme precision, using only magic. He is further impressed when he notices Liam also has a bag of Lecro crystals. These are crystals designed to restore depleted magic power. Bruno asks if Liam created them on his own, and Liam confirms it, though he admits it was challenging to perfect the technique at first since it requires casting 5 types of magic simultaneously. However, he eventually managed to get it right. Bruno is pleased to see how talented his younger brother is, as it reassures him that Liam will likely do just fine on his own. As for Bruno, he's getting married soon, so he won't be around anymore. Liam is shocked since this is the first time he's hearing about any marriage, but Bruno explains that he is marrying into a low-ranking noble family. They have less money than the Hamilton family, but he will have more freedom there, so he's happy with the arrangement. Liam doesn't know how to feel about this, but he says he's happy for Bruno. Before leaving, Bruno decides to offer Liam some advice. He explains that their father had hoped for a daughter, intending to marry her into the royal family to solidify the Hamilton family's status as nobility. However, when Liam was born a boy, their father considered him a failure and resolved to try again for a daughter instead. In the meantime, their father grew increasingly anxious about the family's position, so in a desperate attempt to achieve something, he sent out a force of 1,000 men to slay a monster that had been sealed away in the forest. However, that plan failed miserably, resulting in the loss of over 90% of the forces. Their father is still trying to gain an achievement for the Hamilton family, but personally, Bruno thinks the family is doomed. He wants Liam to think about a way to live independently. Liam takes Bruno's advice about becoming independent to heart and starts selling his creations to earn his own income. This turns out to be a smart move, as the white charcoal proves to be a valuable commodity and sells for a good price. However, Liam realizes he'll need something even more lucrative if he's going to make enough money to support himself fully. Since he's in town already, Liam decides to take a break at a noodle shop and asks for a bowl of ramen. The shop lady prepares one bowl for him, and Liam absolutely loves the taste, and so do a lot of people in town. But all the noodles here are made from scratch and don't last very long, so Liam comes up with a great idea to make some extra profit. After some experimentation, Liam heads to the kitchen where his maid and the head chef are preparing dinner and asks them to try his latest creation. He places a block of noodles into a bowl and explains that all they need to do is pour hot water over it. Once they do, it transforms into a tasty bowl of noodles. Liam had used his spirits to cook and dehydrate the noodles, making them last a long time and allowing them to be prepared almost instantly. He is sure his invention will be widely loved, so he rushes to the merchant guild to sell it. But to his disappointment, the merchant tells him he can't distribute Liam's product for him since he is only the 5th son of the Hamilton family. As such, he will need written permission from his father or his eldest brother, Albrecht, to sell any original goods in this land. Liam doubts he'll be able to get permission without also having to surrender his profits, so he decides to give up for now and heads home. There, it's revealed that Albrecht was the one who instructed the merchant to reject Liam's request. Unable to tolerate the thought of his younger brother being more successful than him, Albrecht is determined to do whatever it takes to sabotage Liam's efforts. However, while Liam may not be aware of his brother's grudge against him, he's determined to sell his products no matter what it takes. He decides to take some drastic measures. First, he loads a bunch of his products into an item box he created with the man's ring. Afterwards, he begins casting summoning magic, but this time, instead of summoning a spirit, he intends to use it to summon himself. At first, it seems like the spell is going to function as teleportation, but instead, Liam ends up creating a perfect clone of himself and sends it to a neighboring territory. If he's not allowed to sell his products within the Hamilton region, he decides he'll simply sell them elsewhere. A few days later, Liam receives a message from his clone detailing the impressive sales it has managed to secure. At this pace, Liam is beginning to see real potential in achieving his independence. When Liam isn't busy selling his wares, he spends his time practicing attack spells using his clone. He's finally managed to master the control of the magic missile spell, which leaves him feeling quite proud of himself. Suddenly, he hears the sound of someone approaching. Quickly dispelling his clone, he heads out to see who it could be. To his surprise, the visitor turns out to be Albravit. Albravit wastes no time and immediately asks Liam what he wants to become in the future. Liam knows Albravit is only asking because he wants to figure out if Liam is really a threat to his position as the successor of the family. But as mentioned before, Liam has no interest in family politics, so he tells Albravit that he wants to become independent in the future. Albravit is relieved since he won't have to compete with Liam for succession rights if he becomes independent. To help him become independent as quickly as possible, he offers to put in a good word for him so he can join the Hunters Guild. Later that day, Liam makes his way to the Hunters Guild. The moment he steps inside, all eyes turn toward him, as the hunters doubt that someone as young as Liam belongs there. Ignoring their stares, Liam approaches the front desk to meet the guild master, who has already been informed about him by Albravit. Despite this, the guild master insists on testing Liam's abilities. He instructs Liam to cast an offensive spell at him, using any incantation he chooses. However, Liam is completely baffled, as he's never heard of incantations before and has no idea what the guild master is referring to. The guild master had been expecting Liam to be slightly stronger than average since Albravit recommended him. However, after Liam fires his spell, the guild master has a near-death experience. Luckily, Liam had the sense not to aim directly at him. After calming himself down, the guild master grants Liam B rank status. Now that Liam has an official ranking, he heads out to complete his first mission. But before he leaves, he is approached by a girl. She introduces herself as Asuna and is clearly impressed by Liam's skills. She then asks if he would like to team up with her. While Liam had originally planned to venture out alone, he doesn't see any harm in having a partner, so he agrees to her proposal. Overjoyed by his response, Asuna excitedly grabs his hand and starts leading him away to get started. However, Liam is left confused, as neither of them has actually been assigned a mission yet. Asuna explains to him that missions are only handed out to parties that are a rank or higher. The rest of the ranks have to go out and slay dangerous monsters for a reward. As luck would have it, they just so happen to run into a wolf monster. Unfortunately, it turns out to be an entire pack of wolves, so Asuna isn't sure they'll be able to handle this many. Liam, on the other hand, thinks this should be an easy victory with the two of them. He asks Asuna to finish the wolves off once he has incapacitated them. Liam summons a pair of earth spirits and cleverly uses them as bait to draw the wolves' attention. When the wolves bite down, Liam commands the gnomes to expand, effectively locking the wolves' jaws in place. With the wolves immobilized, Asuna is free to take them down one by one. By the end of the fight, they've successfully eliminated a total of 42 wolves. When they present the carcasses to the guild master, he's thoroughly impressed by their teamwork and skill, so much so that he offers them a special mission. There's apparently an important person coming to town in a few days, so he wants Liam and Asuna to take out an armored caterpillar that has been blocking the path. There would be a disaster if an important person were to get hurt while visiting their town, so Liam takes this mission very seriously. They find the caterpillar fairly easily, but no matter what they try, they can't seem to kill it. All Asuna's strikes and all Liam's magic just bounce off its tough shell. If this keeps up, they'll never be able to take the thing down. During a break, Asuna jokingly remarks that the only thing capable of piercing the caterpillar's tough armor would be a meteor. Of course, she adds, there's no way they could summon a meteor strike here. Her comment sparks a brilliant idea in Liam's mind. He asks Asuna to draw the caterpillar's attention while he prepares something. Although she has no clue what Liam is planning, Asuna trusts him and begins distracting the caterpillar. Once it's in the perfect position, Liam opens his item box and releases a massive boulder, crushing the caterpillar in a single, decisive blow. The method was so effective, in fact, that they managed to kill a second caterpillar. Liam was worried there might be more caterpillars around, so he used a search spell after killing the first one, and sure enough, he found the second lurking nearby and killed it too. The guildmaster is so impressed with Asuna and Liam's performance that he offers to give them 5 times the original reward. A few days later, on the day the important guest is scheduled to arrive, Liam, Asuna, and many of the townspeople gather outside to catch a glimpse of the visitor. Liam's father and Albervit are also present to formally welcome their guest. Strangely enough, the man seems to take a particular interest in Liam. After a series of events, the man ultimately requests a private meeting with Liam, leaving him utterly confused about the reason behind it. The man introduces himself as James Stanley and wants to get straight to the point. He asks Liam how he got Raymond's ring, suspecting Liam must have stolen it. Liam gets up and yells that he would never do such a thing to his master. He explains the whole encounter he had with the man in the forest. After hearing the story, Stanley finds it really amusing since it sounds exactly like something Raymond would do. He apologizes for accusing Liam of theft since he hadn't realized Raymond took on a student. Since he's already there, Stanley decides to test just how strong Raymond's student really is. He instructs his assistant, Simon, to stand in the corner and challenges Liam to fire his most powerful spell at him. Accepting the test, Liam positions himself and begins preparing to cast his magic missiles to enhance the spell's strength. He chooses to incorporate an incantation he recently learned. This technique amplifies the magic power of a spell, with the best results coming from words that hold personal significance to the caster. Liam begins reciting the names of his favorite idols. The incantation evidently works because Liam's spell casting is boosted from the usual 7 missiles to 11 at once. Poor Simon can't handle it, so the attack breaks through his shield and he gets hit. James is impressed with Liam's capacity for high-volume magic, so he offers him a reward and says he will be granted the status of a knight. Becoming a knight signifies that Liam is now independent, meaning Albervit will likely stop keeping an eye on him since he's no longer a threat to the line of succession. Meanwhile, James, who knows Raymond quite well, points out that Raymond has a penchant for playing practical jokes. He asks Liam if he's experienced anything like that recently. Now that he thinks about it, while training to master his item box, Liam accidentally used it to drain the lake in the forest. When he did, he discovered a letter left behind by Raymond. The letter was addressed to Liam and said that Raymond had wanted to give him 100 kilograms of gold as a graduation gift, but it all sank to the bottom of the lake. Instead, he decided to turn the gold into gold dust and mix it into the river. Liam thinks it was just a waste of all that gold to dump it into the river, but from what James knows about Raymond, there's probably more to it than just a practical joke, so it might be worth looking a little deeper into it. Taking James' advice, Liam returns to the lake and decides to drain all the water again. This time, he comes up with the clever idea of using his item box to separate the gold dust from the water. As he does, a hidden door is triggered. Inside, Liam discovers a note from Raymond explaining that the maximum level grimoire hidden there is Liam's true graduation gift for solving the riddle. Raymond admits that he was never able to master it himself, but he believes Liam might be able to make good use of it. Liam takes a look at the grimoire and finds an interesting spell called Another World. After several hours of trial and error, Liam finally manages to get the spell to work. The Another World spell creates a separate dimension over which Liam has full control. He can open a gateway anywhere, and no one can enter without his permission. Liam is overjoyed by all the amazing things he could do with this spell. As soon as he has the chance, he goes out hunting with Asuna again. This time, they face off against a massive frog. Liam starts by summoning his fire spirits to attack, but their efforts aren't enough to take the frog down. In response, the frog begins charging its ultimate attack. Just before the attack lands, Liam quickly pulls Asuna into his pocket dimension, shielding them both from the frog's devastating electrocution. Once the frog exhausts all its energy, they seize the opportunity to finish it off. A little while later, they return to the guild with the frog's magic stone. The guild master can hardly believe they managed to pull it off. That quest was a rank, so he at least expected them to struggle a little, but it looks like it was barely a challenge for Liam. Asuna gets upset at the guild master because he keeps referring to Liam alone, even though she fought alongside him. The guild master apologizes, admitting that since Liam handled most of the work, he almost forgot Asuna was even part of the team. Noticing that Asuna feels frustrated about being so much weaker than Liam, the guild master suggests a solution: Liam should make Asuna his slave. Both Liam and Asuna immediately reject the idea, as becoming a slave would mean Asuna would be forced to obey any command Liam gives. However, the guild master then explains that if Asuna became Liam's familiar instead, her strength would automatically grow in proportion to his. As soon as she hears that, she's on board with becoming Liam's slave. Sure, she won't be able to refuse if Liam ends up making pervy requests, but Asuna trusts that he wouldn't do that. Even if he did, she wouldn't mind. They end up creating the contract, and once it's done, Asuna immediately disappears. Everyone is shocked, but then she reappears behind Liam and explains that she just moved really fast. After the contract was established, Asuna heard a voice in her head that told her a unique skill had been acquired: Speedster. Liam finds this idea fascinating so much so that he's eager to test it out again. However, forming familiar contracts comes with the drawback of enforcing obedience, making it difficult to find someone willing to give up their freedom in exchange for a skill. Luckily, Asuna knows just the right person for the job. They visit her friend Jody and explain the entire situation to her. Since Jody doesn't have much going on at the moment, she agrees to become Liam's familiar. After the contract is finalized, everyone immediately asks if she's unlocked a unique skill as well. Rather than tell them what it is, Jody walks out of the guild and returns with 2 sandwiches. She gives one of the sandwiches to a guy with a broken hand, and the second he eats it. His arm recovers. Jody explains that her unique skill allows her to heal people with the food she makes. A few days later, Liam has another meeting with James, who informs him that Princess Scarlet is planning to visit. Liam is baffled as to why the princess would travel all this way just for someone like him. James, however, reminds him that he successfully completed an rank quest, can cast up to 11 spells simultaneously, and has the ability to grant unique skills to others by becoming their master. The princess is especially curious to see Liam demonstrate the abilities of his slaves. However, Liam outright refuses to do anything of the sort. James is stunned that Liam would even consider rejecting a request from the queen herself. However, Liam stands firm, explaining that while Jody and Asuna may be his familiars, they are also his friends, and he refuses to turn them into a spectacle for anyone's entertainment. Realizing Liam won't change his mind, James concedes and tells him he's free to go. After Liam leaves, it's revealed that the maid who had been quietly serving them throughout their conversation was, in fact, the princess in disguise. James apologizes to the princess for Liam's refusal, but to his surprise, she finds it intriguing that Liam would defy royalty to stand up for his friends. That said, she's curious to see if he'll maintain the same stance when speaking to her directly. The following day, Liam is summoned to an audience with Princess Scarlet, who is no longer in disguise. Liam knows he must tread carefully with his responses to her. Upon entering her palace, he kneels respectfully before her, but Scarlet wastes no time and gets straight to the point. She orders a seat to be brought for Liam, and remarks that she's heard of his impressive feats defeating an armored caterpillar and a giant frog. What catches her attention the most is his ability to kill the frog without relying on high-level magic, a feat no one else has accomplished before. However, her curiosity extends further to Liam's familiars, and she promptly asks him to demonstrate their abilities. Liam can tell that she's trying to use her authority to force him to obey, but he can't accept her request. Scarlet asks him if he really intends to refuse a direct request from a noble, regardless of what the consequences may be. Liam remains firm in his answer, and absolutely refuses to turn his friends into a circus act. He is fully prepared to face Scarlet's wrath for refusing her, but to his surprise, she bursts out in laughter. Liam is the first person she has met who stays true to their morals even in the face of higher authority, and she finds that really amusing. To reward him, she declares that from this moment on, Liam will be given the title of Baron. Liam panics, feeling unworthy of such a title. But Scarlet has taken a liking to him, and as the princess, she can do as she pleases. With this decision, Liam's family will not lose their noble status. But Scarlet has something else in mind for him. She offers him a familiar contract grimoire, which excites Liam far more than the prospect of becoming a baron ever did. Overjoyed, he thanks Scarlet sincerely and happily sets off to begin practicing with his new grimoire. A little while later, Liam is sitting out in the forest while reading the grimoire, and he is able to use the spells inside pretty easily. However, until he masters the book, his contracts won't be permanent. While he's still practicing, he notices Bruno walk up to him and is really surprised since Bruno got married and left home a while ago. Liam asks Bruno why he's here, but Bruno doesn't have a specific reason. He just wanted to come hang out with his brother, mainly to congratulate Liam in person for becoming a baron since it's a massive accomplishment. Bruno tells Liam that he basically outranks their father now. Liam doesn't understand what he means since their father is a count and Liam is only a baron. Bruno explains that although barons rank below counts, this country divides nobles into distinct categories: those who achieve something significant and earn their titles through merit, and those who simply inherit their rank. Naturally, the nobles who earn their titles are held in higher regard. Liam hadn't realized this was how the system worked, but even if it means he now outranks his father, it doesn't matter much to him since his main focus is on learning magic. As he strolls through the halls, he encounters Albrecht and greets him, but Albrecht rudely ignores him. Liam is left puzzled, wondering what could have upset him so much. Meanwhile, Albrecht is absolutely furious that his stupid little brother is somehow overshadowing him. While walking, he overhears a couple of maids talking about how much Liam has been accomplishing lately, and he takes great offense to this. He yells at them and says if they think Liam is so amazing, maybe they should quit and go work for him instead. The maids realize Albrecht is jealous of Liam, so they quickly apologize for offending him. But Albrecht isn't done yet. He asks the maids if they think Liam is better than him. The answer is quite obvious. One is a magical prodigy who earned a title at just 12 years old, while the other is a spoiled brat who hasn't achieved anything noteworthy in his life. However, the maids, eager to keep their positions, refrain from saying this outright and instead reassure Albrecht that he is superior to Liam. Satisfied with their words, Albrecht storms off, vowing to prove his worth and show that he truly is better than Liam. He swears to accomplish something significant as well. The next day, Liam meets with Asuna and Jody in town. The three of them seem to have become quite popular, mostly because of how pretty Jody and Asuna are. Consequently, every guy in the crowd is staring daggers at Liam out of jealousy. Moving on, Liam wants the three of them to officially form a party, but he doesn't want to force them to do something they don't want to do, so he asks if they're okay with it. Neither Asuna nor Jody have any reason to object to Liam's idea, so they agree to form a party with him. Later that day, they all head out into the forest on a mission. Jody fires her bow, landing an arrow in a wolf's neck, and as it weakens, Asuna charges forward and finishes it off with her sword. Liam praises Asuna, noting how much faster she has become since becoming his familiar. On the topic of improvements, Jody points out that she no longer suffers from old lady vision thanks to the contract making her young again. Liam jokingly asks if having improved vision is always a good thing. For Jody, the answer is a resounding yes, especially as an archer. Better eyesight is invaluable. Hearing this, Liam raises his hand and casts an enhancement spell on Jody's eyes, greatly increasing her ability to see farther than ever before. Asuna asks Liam about what he just did, so he explains that he just used a basic enhancement spell to give Jody better vision. Asuna thinks that sounds really cool, so she asks Liam to cast an enhancement spell on her as well. However, Liam doesn't think that's such a good idea. He could probably enhance Asuna's combat power, but it would be risky since there's a high chance she would break her bones under the stress of her new strength. Something like boosted vision, on the other hand, has no real drawbacks. With her 20/20ths vision, Jody can practically snipe anything within the range of her bow, and it's all thanks to Liam, so she's really grateful. After a long day of hunting, Liam and his group return to the guild, only to find the place in utter chaos. Curious and alarmed, they ask what happened and are informed that Albrecht caused a massive disaster by breaking the forest seal. Liam quickly pieces together that Albervit must have tried to defeat the monster sealed in the forest, driven by his twisted jealousy. Feeling partly responsible for what happened, Liam rushes to the forest to assess the damage. When he and the others arrive, the scene is far worse than they could have anticipated. Dozens of soldiers lie severely injured, and many more have already lost their lives. Liam is utterly horrified by the devastation. He then spots Albervit lying on the ground, injured, and runs over to check on him. However, as soon as Albervit sees him, he gets up in a frenzy and starts yelling that he hasn't failed yet. Just then, the guild master takes a stick and whacks Albervit over the head, stating that the situation is already crazy enough as it is, and he doesn't need a crazy, insecure noble running around. Once Albervit is taken away, the guild master approaches Liam and tells him he's glad he came. Asuna asks him about what's going on, so he explains that the dragon fiend Radon used to be sealed inside these woods thanks to the hard work of Liam's great-grandfather. However, Albervit undid that seal in a failed attempt to kill Radon, so it's now on the loose. They know how to reseal the beast, and the guild master has already assembled everyone needed for the task. However, one major obstacle stands in their way: Radon's offspring. The young Radons are the true culprits behind the devastation seen here. If the smaller ones can cause such destruction, it's terrifying to imagine the havoc the real Radon could unleash. Fortunately, having been sealed away for so long, Radon will take about a week to recover his full strength and launch an attack. If they can reseal him before that happens, they might be able to prevent a catastrophe. Liam plans to help as much as possible, so he races over to Radon's location and finds him being guarded by the three little Radons. The little Radons aren't that big, so Asuna decides to try her luck and runs in for an attack. However, as she does so, one of the little Radons shoots a fireball at her. Although she manages to dodge it, the tree behind her gets completely vaporized. Liam then tries using his magic missiles to attack, but the Radons use their fireballs to counter. Liam doesn't know what to do anymore. His strongest attack spell did not affect them. Still, Liam has one last trick up his sleeve. He commands Asuna to grab Jody and get away. As the Radons charge toward him, Liam opens his another world gate just in time, causing them to fall in and trapping them inside. The guild master is stunned that Liam managed to defeat all three of the young Radons on his own, and Liam himself can hardly believe it. It was an incredibly close call, with the little Radons no longer posing a threat. The guild master orders everyone to begin the process of resealing Radon once more. While that's going on, Asuna and Jody return to Liam's side, and he's relieved that they are all right. They ask him about the spell he used to defeat the little Radons, so Liam explains that it's a spell that creates a separate dimension. He trapped the little Radons in there, but there's no risk of them escaping since, at his current level of mastery, whenever he closes the gate, everything inside the dimension disappears. At that moment, Liam hears a voice in his head, and in the blink of an eye, he is pulled into Radon's mind. Radon addresses Liam as a human with an immense soul and demands to know who he truly is. Confused, Liam insists that he's just an ordinary human. However, Radon is unconvinced, pointing out that Liam's body and soul are clearly mismatched. This leads Liam to consider that Radon might be referring to his reincarnation into the body of Liam Hamilton, sparking hope that Radon might hold some answers about the mystery. Unfortunately, Radon reveals that he knows nothing about it. However, what he does know is that Liam's life is bound to be an interesting one, so he offers to make a deal with him. Radon wants to accompany Liam through his life and promises that he will not bring any harm to Liam or those around him if he agrees. In fact, he offers to help Liam build on top of the skills he already possesses. Liam doesn't sense any animosity coming from Radon, so he ends up agreeing to the deal. All of a sudden, Radon's body dematerializes and is absorbed into Liam's soul, leaving a dragon mark on his hand. Liam can feel the power of Radon flowing through his body, so he decides to do a little test run and fires his magic missile into the sky. To his surprise, he is now able to control and fire 17 spells at the same time. It must be thanks to the power boost Radon granted him. However, wielding Radon's power appears to have some unintended consequences, as everyone around Liam starts experiencing severe headaches from the overwhelming density of his mind. mana. Realizing that he is the source of their discomfort, Liam quickly suppresses his mana and apologizes for his thoughtlessness. To demonstrate his sincerity, he offers the guild master 10 kilograms of gold dust, instructing him to use it to cover the medical expenses for those who were seriously injured during the battle. Later that night, Liam has a meeting with his father. His father is really grateful for what Liam did, as it prevented a great disaster caused by Albrecht's close-mindedness. He also heard that James is still in town, so word of Liam's great accomplishment should reach the royal capital soon enough. That night, Liam goes to bed, and by the time he wakes up the next morning, he discovers that 2 new spells have appeared in his mind. Filled with excitement, he hurries outside to test them. After several hours of practice, he manages to successfully cast one of the spells, summoning a small radon. With some additional practice, Liam is confident that he can train the little radon to be effective in combat. But for now, it's nothing more than an adorable pet. While Liam is playing with the little radon, Princess Scarlet happens to walk up behind him. She immediately recognizes the magic Liam just used as holy magic. Scarlet already knew Liam was impressive, but to think he would be capable of using holy magic at such a young age amazes her. Anyway, that's not why Scarlet is here today. She is here to give Liam his reward for defeating the Dragon Fiend. Scarlet had personally hoped to grant Liam a higher noble title, but the other nobles strongly objected to the idea of a landless child receiving so many promotions in such a short time. As a compromise, she decides to award him the Order of the Phoenix, 3rd class. While present, she also expresses interest in hearing how Liam managed to defeat the dragon, as the specifics of his achievement might require her to officially declare him a national hero. The princess is utterly horrified when she learns that Liam absorbed the Dragon Fiend. She immediately questions whether she had been completely wrong about him. However, having witnessed him use holy magic moments before, she hesitates to make any definitive judgment. Regardless, she firmly instructs Liam to keep that detail a closely guarded secret at all costs. The following day, Liam is presented with a chest containing 3,000 gold coins as hush money. He's not entirely sure why the princess is so adamant about keeping him quiet, but he decides it's best to go along with her wishes for now. Of course, he had already received his hush money from the princess. Growing suspicious, James called for a meeting to question Liam about what happened. Liam initially tries to brush it off, denying that anything noteworthy occurred. However, for the princess to pay him such a large sum of hush money, it must have been a significant secret. James presses him further, and eventually, Liam cracks under the pressure, admitting that he can use holy magic. To prove it, he demonstrates one of his spells and explains that it can remove all negative status effects, including petrification and poison. James finds this incredible, though it's not entirely surprising, given that holy magic is regarded as a divine act of God. James asks Liam if he knows anything about the War of the Three Dragons, but Liam doesn't. So, James begins recounting the tale. Long ago, there was a battle between 3 mighty dragons that raged on until only one emerged victorious. According to legend, the dragon's triumph was largely attributed to its use of holy magic. Afterward, the dragon supposedly joined forces with a human, and its magic was instrumental in founding this kingdom. When James says join, Liam's first thought is that the dragon and the human got married and had children, but that's not the case. James clarifies, pointing out that Liam himself is a perfect example of what it means to join with a dragon. Now that he mentions it, Liam recalls that Radon did merge with his body, so technically, the two of them are joined. James tells Liam that he's essentially recreating the legend of this nation's founding. While that's undoubtedly incredible, there are more urgent matters to address. The Hamilton family's noble status was earned through their grandfather's supposed achievement of sealing away a dragon fiend. However, it has come to light that Radon was not a dragon fiend at all, but rather the founding dragon of the nation. This means Liam's family unjustly sealed the nation's founder. If this revelation were to become public, the Hamilton family's noble status would almost certainly be stripped away. Liam is determined to prevent that, knowing how desperate his father and Albrecht are to preserve their position. But there's something that James is even more concerned about, since there's a chance that Radon is angry about being sealed away, so he may be plotting his revenge against their nation. However, Liam has a little chat with Radon in his head, and Radon says he has no intention of retaliating against the humans, so all he is interested in is watching Liam develop. James says because this is terrific news, and it wouldn't be a stretch to say that Liam is the savior of the kingdom for being able to grab the attention of Radon. A short while later, Liam arrives at the guild, but before he can step inside, the girls pull him away. Confused, Liam waits until they're a good distance from the guild before asking what's going on. They explain that the guild is overflowing with applicants trying to join their party after hearing about Liam's defeat of a dragon fiend. Many of them had been pleading with Asuna and Jody to convince him. The two of them compiled a list of all the potential candidates, though, to be honest, none of these adventurers seem particularly impressive. Still, as the party leader, the final decision rests with Liam. After that, Liam decides to head back to his house to read through the list. But as soon as he walks through the door, one of the maids says she has something to show him. These are all requests from the girls of various noble families because they want to become Liam's wife. Liam had kind of expected this to happen since he's popular now, but this many is more than he's prepared to handle. Even his brother is bringing him a letter at this point. But thankfully, he's not the one trying to marry Liam. It's one of the relatives of the family he married into. While they're talking, Bruno asks Liam what he did, as it's definitely not normal to receive so many marriage proposals at once, even if he did defeat a dragon. The only people Liam has confided in about the holy magic are the princess and James. But the large sum of hush money the princess gave him has led the other nobles to suspect that something significant is going on with him. It's a bit of a hassle, but Liam can't deny that he's thoroughly enjoying all the newfound popularity. Later that day, Liam heads out into the forest with Jody and Asuna because he has something he would like to show them. He opens his pocket dimension, and upon entering, Asuna and Jody find a huge house in the middle of the room. Liam explains that he had a carpenter build it, and then he moved it in here using his item box, and that's all impressive. But Asuna is concerned that the house will just disappear like what happened with the little Radons back then. Liam explains that he has fully mastered this spell, and nothing inside will disappear anymore, which is why he put all this stuff in here. Liam gives Asuna and Jody a tour of the house, and they both seem to be enjoying it. However, Jody points out that the constant brightness in the place would make it difficult to fall asleep. This gives Liam an idea. He decides to summon a shade spirit to darken the area. While it does work, it works a little too well, plunging the entire house into complete darkness. To fix this, Liam summons a fire spirit to light the fireplace, but the result still looks more like a setting straight out of a horror movie. So he asks the shade if it can control the level of darkness it creates. Unfortunately, the shade is low level, so it doesn't have control over its darkness, and although a mid-level shade would be able to do it, Liam hasn't learned the spell to summon one yet. Asuna thinks it's a real shame that the low-level shade can't just become a mid-level one. That's when Liam remembers that his familiar contracts level people up, so he forms a contract with the shade, and it indeed levels up. The shade thanks Liam for forming a contract with it, and now as a mid-level spirit, adjusts the darkness in the area to resemble nighttime instead of complete blackness. It then tells Liam that he can summon it anytime. However, Liam admits that he's unsure if he'll be able to summon the shade again, as he doesn't know how to use mid-level spirit magic. The shade then points out that Liam is wearing a magic storage ring, which he can use to absorb and summon it whenever he likes. Liam hadn't considered that, so he gives it a try, and sure enough, the ring successfully absorbs the mid-level shade. He then does the same thing with all the other spirits and levels them up before storing them in his ring. So Liam now basically has a mid-level summoning grimoire of his own. The next day, Liam heads out into the forest at Radon's request, and once he gets to the designated spot, Radon asks him to summon one of the Radon Juniors. Liam summons it, and the Radon Juniors create an opening in a barrier that reveals dozens of pixies that have been hidden in the forest. As soon as the pixies realize Liam is human, they immediately start flying away to avoid getting hurt. Liam tries to reassure them, explaining that he isn't their enemy. He mentions that Radon is the one who sent him here, and upon hearing Radon's name, the pixies begin to trust him a bit more. Pixie wings are valuable ingredient items in potions, so humans almost hunted them into extinction at one point. That's why Radon took it upon himself to protect them by creating a barrier in the forest. However, since he's now living inside Liam, he can't maintain the barrier anymore, so he wants wants Liam to protect the pixies in his place. To do this, Liam first wants to form familiar contracts with all the pixies, so he asks them if they are okay with that. The pixies trust Liam since he is working on behalf of Radon, and since he's going to be forming contracts with them, Radon asks Liam to give them names as well, since naming things gives additional power to human magic. Liam forms a contract with a pixie and decides to name her Rihanna. However, to his shock, as soon as the contract is completed, Rihanna transforms from a pixie into an elf. Radon finds it fascinating that the pixie evolved into an elf, though he isn't particularly surprised. Liam, on the other hand, is completely baffled and can't understand how this happened. Radon explains that forming a magic contract and naming the pixie simultaneously caused the magic power from both actions to resonate, creating a much stronger effect than usual, which led to the pixie's significant evolution. Moving forward, Radon advises Liam to name every familiar he contracts with. After seeing the effects of the contract, all the other pixies are eager to form a contract and ask Liam to name them as well. Once all the pixies have been turned into elves, Rihanna asks him for some orders since they are his familiars. Liam hadn't really thought that far ahead since he just came here at Radon's request, but since the pixies are all elves now, he suggests that they should start building a village for themselves. He also appoints Rihanna as the leader of the village since she was the first pixie he evolved, and she's the only one whose name he remembers right now. With everything settled, the elves begin planting their village, while Liam, completely drained, struggles to recover after expending so much magic power forming all those contracts. Just then, he senses a strong surge of magic deeper in the forest and decides to investigate. He discovers a golden fruit hanging from a tree, radiating an immense amount of mana. Curious, he asks Rihanna about it, and she explains that it's a fruit created by pixies. They gather mana floating in the air and condense it into a single form, essentially creating mana honey. When Liam asks if he can eat it, Rihanna has no objections. He cuts the fruit down and takes a bite. As soon as he does, not only is his magic power fully restored, but his overall magic capacity increases significantly, allowing him to cast 19 spells without chanting. The next day, Liam comes back to the village to check on how things are going, and Rihanna comes out to greet him. But she has some bad news. Even though he told them to build a village for themselves, they don't actually know how to build houses, so this is the best they could do. Liam figured something like this might happen, so he's prepared to teach them how to build homes for themselves. However, his lesson is interrupted when they hear one of the elves scream for help. Bandits happen to make their way into the forest, and as soon as they spotted an elf, they decided to kidnap and sell her off for money. Liam isn't about to let that happen, so he demands that the bandits release Susie immediately, but being bandits, they ignore him and try to attack instead. In response, Liam summons a clone and uses it to launch a simultaneous attack, quickly knocking them out. Although he manages to save Susie, he comes to the realization that this forest is far too dangerous for the elves to live in. He decides to relocate them somewhere safer and considers using his pocket dimension for now. However, he's unsure if it will be big enough to hold everyone, as the space wasn't that large the last time he checked. When he looks inside, though, he discovers that it has significantly expanded, most likely due to the pixie honey he ate the previous day. This works out great for him, so he tells all the pixies to get inside so he can take them to a safe place. A little while later, Liam has returned to his land and opens his pocket dimension for the elves to come out, and they are shocked to realize that they are in an entirely different area now. Liam tells them that he brought them to his land so they won't have to worry about being attacked anymore. While the elves are grateful, they are even more amazed that Liam was able to transport all of them here with a single spell. The elves all bow before Liam, pleading with him to become their king and swearing to do whatever he asks if he agrees to rule them. Feeling a strong sense of responsibility to protect them, Liam accepts their request to lead, but he asks them not to call him a king, as he has no interest in dealing with the politics that come with the title. Now that he's their leader, his first priority is to find suitable land for them to settle on. 4 days pass, and Liam is still working on securing a place for the elves to live, dedicating much of his time to relentlessly practicing the new magic Radon taught him. When he finally figures it out, he tells everyone to line up, He then proceeds to teleport them all about 100 kilometers from where they were before to a place called the Sealed Islands. Radon is the one who sealed this land, but he has permitted them to use it as much as they like. This would have been a 4-day trip if they traveled normally, but with the teleportation magic he learned from Radon, he can instantly travel to any location he has been to before. He tells the elves that they can live here from now on, but he's still going to need someone to build houses for them. For now, Liam leaves the little Radons in charge of protecting the elves while he's away and teleports back home. Once there, he is visited by the princess, who asks if Radon ever mentioned a place called the Promised Lands. Liam admits he's never heard of the Promised Lands, but he does recall that Radon gave him permission to use a location known as the Sealed Lands. The princess then asks if Liam can take her there. Liam agrees but says he'll need something from her in return. He requests that she bring one of the court engineers, as there's a project he needs their help to complete. Instead of taking the actual engineer, Liam creates a clone of Golak and teleports both the clone and the princess with him to the Sealed Lands. Upon their arrival, the princess is convinced that this must be the Promised Lands. She begins recounting the legend, which states that humanity's salvation lies in the Promised Lands, and that a ring passed down through the royal family for generations is said to be the key. However, the ring starts reacting to Liam. When he touches it, a massive section of the land begins to float at his command. Overwhelmed, the princess bows before him and pleads with Liam to establish a nation here for the salvation of humanity. Liam really doesn't want to take on the responsibility, but the princess pledges her loyalty and offers all of her resources to support the endeavor, leaving him with no choice but to agree. Following the Golak clone's guidance, the elves have been steadily making progress on constructing their village. Meanwhile, Liam focuses on eliminating the monsters that wander through the area using his magic. After finally managing to defeat a giant turtle, he suddenly becomes aware of Princess Scarlet standing behind him. Scarlet quickly apologizes for staring, explaining that she was simply captivated by her master's incredible magic power. Liam, still uneasy with the whole master-servant dynamic that Scarlet insists on, tells her that she doesn't need to serve him. After all, as the kingdom's second princess, her status is far above his. However, Scarlet assures him that she's doing this of her own free will. Her family carries dragon blood in their veins, which is why the women in her lineage are typically married off to strengthen ties with other nations. Because of this, she would much rather serve under the dragon god Radon than continue her role as a princess of the kingdom. Seeing how genuinely devoted Scarlet is, Radon takes a liking to her and instructs her to walk 1 kilometer north, hinting that she'll find something there that may interest her. Following Radon's instructions, Scarlet and Liam make their way through the forest until they come across the entrance to some ancient ruins. Venturing inside, they discover a massive metal dragon resting in the center of the room. As they step closer, the dragon suddenly stirs and appears ready to attack. Confused, Liam quickly turns to Radon and asks what's going on. Radon explains that this creature is one of the guardians he created, and it will undoubtedly attack them. However, if Liam can remove one of the ancient letters inscribed on its forehead, the dragon will become a loyal companion. That sounds simple enough, so Liam quickly teleports to the dragon's forehead and, using a holy lance, successfully pierces one of the letters, instantly disabling the dragon's defense mode. The dragon instinctively reacts to the dragon blood running through Scarlet's veins and chooses to obey her. Overjoyed, Scarlet gladly accepts the dragon as her guardian. However, when Liam mentions that he's heading back to the surface, Scarlet decides to stay behind for a while, as she doesn't want to leave her dragon alone until it has fully recovered from the wound caused by Liam's attack. Liam still can't get used to the idea of having someone as important as Scarlet serve him, but Radon suggests that Liam just needs to become someone equally as important. That way, it wouldn't be awkward anymore. But that's definitely easier said than done. At that moment, Liam senses a disturbance coming from the direction of the village the elves are constructing, so he immediately teleports over to investigate. To his shock, He arrives to find the village completely devastated. The elves inform him that the destruction was caused by a sudden attack from a group of wolfmen, and just as they finish explaining, the wolfmen reappear, demanding that the intruders leave this sacred land at once. Liam can tell that the wolfmen have mistaken them for intruders, so he tries explaining that they were given permission to stay here. But before he could say anything, the wolfmen proceed to attack him, so Liam is forced to teleport out of the way and defend himself with a little magic. The wolfmen remain adamant about forcing Liam and his companions out of this sacred land, but then Liam takes out a Radon Jr., proving his connection to Radon. Realizing their grave mistake, the wolfmen immediately apologize for destroying the village. However, the elves assure them that it's all right, understanding that the wolves were simply fulfilling their duty as servants of Radon. The girls suggest that the wolfmen should become Liam's familiars as well. The leader of the wolfmen thinks it's a good idea, so they agree to become Liam's familiars. Liam has no reason to refuse, so he creates a contract with the leader, naming her Chris. The following day, Liam heads back to the village to check on their progress, with Chris and the other wolfmen now helping out. Construction has been moving along much faster. The moment Chris spots Liam, she excitedly leaps up and gives him a hug. When he asks about the status of the construction, she gestures toward an area and explains that they are still in the process of rebuilding one of the houses they destroyed the day before. Once again, she sincerely apologizes for acting so rashly yesterday, but Liam says it's fine, as long as the wolfmen can help repair the homes, although things would definitely go a lot faster if Liam could just use magic to repair the homes instead, but there's no spell for that in the ring. Radon suggests that if a repair spell doesn't already exist, Liam can simply create one himself. Liam is surprised to learn that he has the ability to create his own spells, so Radon explains that all he needs to do is vividly picture each step of the process required to achieve his desired outcome. Following this advice, Liam casts the newly formed spell on a piece of wood and then asks Chris to break it as a test. Chris follows Liam's instructions and smashes the piece of wood, but to her surprise, it immediately restores itself to its original state, looking as good as new. Liam then explains that this is the result of the spell he just created, Keep Memory. This spell allows inanimate objects to retain a specific state no matter what happens to them. By casting it on the village homes, he ensures that the buildings will remain standing, no matter what damage they might endure. After getting the hang of creating spells, Liam starts experimenting with various types of magic and eventually develops explosive magic missiles. He plans to continue crafting even more spells, but just as he's about to, he is suddenly interrupted by an urgent summons. Something has happened, and it's an emergency. Humans have invaded the land and are hunting down some pixies that live here. This is really serious, so Liam rushes out to investigate and discovers the intruders. He stands in their way and warns them to turn back because this is his nation. The men think Liam is just a stupid child, so they ignore him and continue moving. But then, Liam fires a warning shot to make it clear that he's not messing around. The men don't take kindly to this, so instead of just turning around and leaving, they decide to attack. They leave Liam with no choice but to take each and every one of them out. Once all the soldiers have been dealt with, Liam heads back to the village, where Rihanna expresses her gratitude for protecting the pixies. She explains that these pixies originally lived in the forest, but after being attacked by soldiers attempting to capture them, they fled here seeking refuge. Liam assures them that they are welcome to stay as long as they like, and even offers to form contracts with them. However, with so many pixies present, Liam ends up spending a significant amount of time naming them, and he's starting to run out of ideas. The following day, Liam gathers the girls in his pocket dimension for a meeting and presents the helmet, asking if they recognize it. Scarlet immediately identifies the crest on the helmet as belonging to Palta, similar to the kingdoms of Jamel and Quistador. Palta is one of the nations bordering the Promised Land. This suggests that the men who attacked yesterday were likely scouts from Palta, and if that's the case, then it's only a matter of time before scouts from Jamel and Quistador begin to appear as well. The three nations were once divided by the valley, but now that Radon's illusion barrier has disappeared, they are likely attempting to claim the land for themselves. Scarlet believes that the only way to permanently prevent anyone from seizing the Promised Lands is for Liam to establish his own nation there, and Liam agrees. With that decided, Scarlet begins listing everything he will need in order to form a nation. He needs land, people, and power. Liam clearly already has land. As for people, as Liam's popularity spreads, people will naturally flock to his side, so he doesn't have to worry about that. The only thing left to consider is military power. Liam may be strong on his own, but he needs a defense force strong enough to protect the land, even while he's not around. With that in mind, Chris steps forward and vows to protect the promised land, swearing to eliminate anyone who dares to attack it. Liam isn't entirely comfortable with how aggressive her declaration is, but given that wolfmen are naturally skilled fighters, he ultimately decides to entrust her with the land's security. Scarlet then advises Liam that all he needs to do is keep developing the village while proving his strength by repelling enemy forces. In time, the surrounding nations will come to understand that forming an alliance with him would be far more beneficial than trying to take the land by force. Everyone agrees on this plan of action, but by the next day, things had progressed far quicker than Liam thought they would. He's met by a man named Leonardo, who introduces himself as a noble from the Jamel kingdom, sent here by the king of Jamel to meet with Liam. He explains that the kingdom of Jamel does not want to fight with him, so he is here in hopes of forming an alliance, and if Liam agrees, the king of Jamel is willing to offer Liam Princess Scarlet's hand in marriage. Liam finds the offer a bit suspicious since he hasn't done anything to earn such recognition yet. Given Scarlet's previous actions, Jamel must have figured out that these lands are somehow connected to the dragon god, which could explain why they're trying to get on his good side. However, Liam still isn't certain about how to respond, so he quickly creates a telepathy spell on the spot and uses it to communicate with Scarlet, asking if she thinks accepting their offer would be a wise decision. Scarlet tells him he should accept since, if the two of them got married, it would at least buy them half a year of time to expand their nation. Liam takes her advice and tells Leonardo that he would be honored to marry Princess Scarlet. However, he wants to postpone the marriage for a year, so he can fully develop his nation into something worthy of the royal family. Leonardo says he understands and leaves to relay Liam's statement to the king. Now that that's been taken care of, Liam decides to visit Princess Scarlet's mansion over in the royal capital, but it's a really long journey to get there, so he had Scarlet escort his clone back, and once the clone arrived, it teleported the real Liam there. Now that Liam has visited Scarlet's mansion, he can return whenever he wants. Since this is his first time in the royal capital, he would love to explore the city, but as the ruler of another nation, he knows he must keep a low profile while he's here. Scarlet invites him inside for some tea, but just before entering, Liam senses traces of Radon's energy coming from within the mansion. Curious, he turns to Scarlet and asks if there's anything inside that could possibly be linked back to Radon. As a matter of fact, there's something that fits that description, so Scarlet leads Liam to her mansion's cathedral, where a statue of Radon has been preserved. The statue has been passed down through Scarlet's maternal family for generations, but Radon had no idea this thing was still around since he had forgotten about it millennia ago. He instructs Liam to approach the statue and cast an all-clear spell on it. As soon as Liam does, the statue begins to glow before suddenly transferring onto Scarlet's body. Looking down at herself, Scarlet realizes that she is now clad in a powerful-looking suit of armor, and for some reason, she can feel an overwhelming surge of strength coursing through her. She attempts to cast one of Liam's spells and launches a holy lance. She manages to complete the spell, but it leaves her completely exhausted since she had to deplete all her mana to do it. Even so, the fact that she actually managed to cast the spell is amazing since she never could have done that before. Radon explains that the armor Scarlet just wore was designed to enhance the abilities of its wearer while also granting them access to some of Radon's holy spells. However, Scarlet's body doesn't yet seem strong enough to fully harness the armor's capabilities after all. This is the golden armor, the most powerful of all the armor sets Radon ever created. She could likely handle one of the lower ranked armors, but unfortunately, all of them were lost in battle, meaning there's no way for her to obtain one. Liam doesn't think that will be a problem since if Radon created the armor to begin with. Then all Liam needs to do is recreate it so Scarlet's body can handle its power. Radon finds Liam's enthusiasm amusing, so he agrees to help him recreate the armor and tells him the first thing he will need is some high mithril. Liam asks Scarlet if she can obtain some high mithril for the armor, which shouldn't be an issue for her. With that settled, Liam immediately gets to work. After putting in some effort, he finally crafts a set of armor perfectly suited for Scarlet. He then hands it over and lets her give it a try. First, she needs to establish a contract with it, so Liam instructs her to spill some of her blood onto the statue. Once Scarlet follows his directions, her body is once again enveloped in magic armor, only this time she can cast Radon's spells without collapsing. Radon is impressed by how effortlessly Liam was able to replicate his armor. Since they're on the subject, Radon tells Liam about the most powerful armor he ever created, the Ruin Guardian. This is the very set he wore during the War of Gods years ago, and he urges Liam to give it a try, believing that he might be capable of handling it. Liam and Scarlet teleport back to the village, where Liam drips a drop of his blood onto the Guardian Radon before forging a contract with it. The Guardian Radon then transforms into armor, which Liam equips, enabling him to unleash 37 magic spells simultaneously. However, performing such a feat pushes Liam to his limits, causing him to collapse from mana exhaustion. Scarlet rushes over to check on him, but Liam reassures her that he's fine. Radon is highly impressed that Liam survived, as only 3 people have ever made it out alive after wearing that armor, and Liam is the first to successfully cast a spell while using it. If Liam can fully master the armor, he would possess the power to rule the world. Liam utilizes a few mana crystals to restore his energy, and while the Guardian armor proves to be quite useful, he decides to pause his training with it for the time being, storing it in his item box. Afterward, he teleports Scarlet back to the capital before teleporting himself to the village to check on the situation. At first glance, everything appears to be running smoothly, but suddenly, Rihanna approaches him with urgent news. It seems that a group of trolls has been sighted living near the village, and while this wouldn't usually be a problem, trolls tend to be either extremely friendly or highly aggressive. Unfortunately, the ones nearby belong to the latter category. They could become a serious threat to the village, but with emissaries from other kingdoms continuing to arrive, the best course of action would be for Liam to persuade them to join his village, preventing any potential conflicts between the trolls and humans. Liam makes his way to the trolls' location to see if he can negotiate with them, and upon his arrival, he is immediately confronted by a group of trolls. Their leader demands to know why he's there, so Liam explains that he's in the process of building a nation and was hoping to invite the trolls to join him. However, the troll leader harbors a deep distrust of humans and has no interest in Liam's offer, firmly telling him to leave. Before Liam even has a chance to respond, the troll suddenly attempts to crush him. Liam does his best to evade the attacks, not wanting to harm the troll, but with each strike being potentially fatal, he has to be extremely cautious. Unfortunately, while trying to dodge, he accidentally stumbles into a hole in the ground, leaving him trapped. With the troll now having a clear shot at him, Liam must act quickly, or he'll find himself in serious danger. The troll's club lands a direct hit on Liam, but fortunately, he manages to equip the Guardian Radon's magic battle armor just in time, allowing him to withstand the attack without sustaining any damage. However, wearing the armor continues to drain a significant amount of his mana. The troll, shocked that a human could survive one of his strikes, briefly hesitates, but it makes little difference to him, as he simply decides to hit even harder next time. But before the troll can strike again, Liam gestures toward his own people standing behind him. In his blind rage, the troll had unknowingly caused considerable damage to them, and if Liam hadn't absorbed that last attack directly, the flying debris could have seriously injured his own comrades. Realizing he may have acted too recklessly, the troll takes a moment to calm himself and finally agrees to hear what Liam has to say. Liam expresses his gratitude to the troll leader for his willingness to cooperate, and once all the trolls have gathered, he begins explaining his intentions. He tells them that he is in the process of building a village nearby, which currently consists mostly of elves and werewolves. However, there is a strong possibility that many humans will arrive in the future. In the worst-case scenario, tensions could escalate into conflict, leading to the humans hunting down the trolls, something Liam wants to prevent. To avoid such a situation, he proposes that the trolls join his village. The troll leader understands what Liam is saying, but he wants to see Liam's village in person before he makes any decisions. Liam is fine with that, so he teleports all the trolls into the village, and the trolls are all amazed by what they see. But then, the troll leader gets spotted by Chris. The two clearly recognize each other, and the moment she sees him, she rushes forward and knocks the troll to the ground with a powerful kick. Liam, completely baffled by what just happened, turns to Chris for an explanation. She casually informs him that she and the troll have a long history together. In short, they find each other incredibly irritating, and without fail, every time they cross paths, it results in a fight. So far, Chris has defeated him 307 times, while the troll has managed to best her 378 times. Speaking of which, Chris expresses her disappointment in their last battle. Noting that the troll barely put up a fight, she questions whether he's gotten weaker, but Liam quickly reminds her that she evolved into a werewolf. The troll didn't become weaker, she simply became stronger. Frustrated by the realization that Chris is now too powerful for him to challenge, the troll sulks, but Chris offers a solution. She explains that her strength increase came from forming a contract with Liam and suggests that he do the same if he wants to level the playing field again. The troll agrees, so Liam forms a contract with him and names him Guy. The contract causes Guy to evolve from a troll to a gigas, and while he may have gotten smaller, Liam can tell that his power increased dramatically. Now that Guy is stronger, Chris says she wants a redo of their battle, so she attacks Guy, and this time, he's able to block the attacks and counter them. It might look like an ordinary fight, but with her current level of strength, even a single punch or kick from both could be lethal to a normal person, leaving the other trolls watching in awe. Seeing their reaction, Liam mentions that he can grant them names as well if they're interested. The trolls eagerly accept his offer, and now Liam finds himself tasked with coming up with 50 more names in an instant. Once all the trolls have formed a contract with Liam, he asks them to do a small favor for him. So they head back to the canyon and begin collecting huge rocks for him. Guy and the other trolls get to work for him, and Chris tries to help as well, but she is nowhere near as strong as Guy, so he tells her to just leave the manual labor to him. She refuses to back down, but in the end, it's her legs that give out instead. Seeing this, Guy lifts the boulder off her back and checks to see if Chris is okay. While she isn't physically hurt, her pride certainly takes a hit, and she quickly runs off in embarrassment. Once all the rocks have been collected, Liam expresses his gratitude to Guy and the others for their help. However, Guy remains puzzled, unsure of what Liam intends to do with so many rocks. Liam explains that earlier when he first met the trolls, he noticed a lot of ores there, so he wants to try melting down the rocks to extract the metals. He summons a gnome and a salamander to create a furnace and blast the rocks until he ends up with a ton of iron, some copper, a little gold, and a tiny bit of mithril. Liam feels quite disappointed, as he had hoped to extract more mithril from the ores, given that mithril is the key material needed to craft the armor sets. Wanting to explore other possibilities, he asks Radon if mithril is truly essential for the armor. Radon confirms that it is, explaining that no other metal is durable enough to withstand the immense stress the armor will have to endure. However, while Liam still doesn't have enough mithril, he does have a ton of iron, so he decides to just try his luck with the iron and see how it turns out. He melts down the iron and has his gnome make the mold for the armor so he can pour in the metal. Once that's done, he begins infusing it with Radon's mana while also giving it a name for good measure. He chooses to name the battle armor Apollo, inspired by the sun, and once it's removed from the mold, it becomes clear that the Apollo battle armor was designed in the shape of the sun. Liam believed that giving it a name that aligned with its form would make it more meaningful, and it seems his intuition was correct, as the armor's creation turned out to be a success. However, Liam runs into a separate problem that evening. Even though he successfully made battle armor out of iron, he still needs to come up with individual names for the armor sets for them to work, and he is all out of ideas for good names. After racking his brain all night, Liam was able to make 15 sets of armor, so he decided to distribute them evenly among the elves, werewolves, and trolls. Everyone assembles outside to put their new armor to the test in mock battles, with both Guy and Chris clearly enjoying themselves as they feel stronger than ever. Meanwhile, a group of bandits unknowingly wanders into the forest, and the moment they lay eyes on the elves, they instantly hatch a plan to capture and sell them for profit. However, they must be out of their minds because they think it's a good idea to threaten the elves here, even though there's a group of trolls and werewolves right next to them. The leader of the bandits declares that he will be taking the elves with him, and as long as they cooperate, he won't have to hurt them. Liam considers stepping in, but before he can make a move, Rihanna stops him and insists that they handle this themselves. She then calls over Mina, one of the weakest elves, and instructs her to take care of the bandits. Under normal circumstances, Mina wouldn't even be able to hurt a fly, but thanks to the armor Liam provided, she effortlessly knocks out all the bandits in an instant. Liam is amazed by how much strength the armor granted Mina, so if he can just make enough for all the elves, they'll be able to defend themselves from any future threats. But that means he's going to have to come up with even more names for the armors. As Liam is lost in thought, the bandit leader seizes the opportunity to sneak up behind him. Attempting to take Liam hostage, he threatens everyone, demanding their obedience if they don't want Liam to die. However, no one even flinches, fully aware that the bandit poses no real threat to him. A moment later, Liam swiftly delivers a powerful punch straight to the bandit's chin. The rest of the bandits finally realize that they are no match for Liam after seeing their boss get beaten into a coma, so they turn and flee the forest. That night, Liam enters his pocket dimension, as there's something important he needs to take care of. He summons a group of water spirits and explains that he has gathered a large amount of seawater. He then asks them to separate the salt from the water so that the villagers will have access to fresh, usable water. The water spirits agree to assist, so Liam starts pouring out the salt water while they begin the purification process. However, one of the water spirits approaches him with something to say. At first, Liam doesn't recognize her, but she quickly explains that she was the very first water spirit he formed a contract with. She then expresses her gratitude, telling him that ever since she evolved thanks to him, she has been able to accomplish far more than before. She was even learning to possess physical objects now, although the spirit monarch doesn't like it when spirits interfere with the physical world too much. Liam is intrigued after hearing that there's a spirit monarch, but he is even more interested in the fact that the water spirit can possess objects. From the mid-level onward, spirits gain the ability to possess objects, and equipment imbued with a spirit's power is known to be exceptionally strong. This gives Liam an idea. He turns to the water spirit and asks if she'd be willing to assist him with a small experiment. Without hesitation, she agrees, eager to help. Liam first names the water spirit Zero to gain an extra buff. After that, he crafts another battle armor in the form of a water spirit and has Zero possess it. With this, he successfully creates possessed battle armor. Following the same process, he repeats it with the fire and earth spirits, then hands over all 3 armor sets to Rihanna, Chris, and Guy. This significantly boosts their power once again, and they are all eager to use their strength in Liam's service. However, while Liam is doing this solely to ensure he can defend his nation, he has already gathered enough military might to conquer all the surrounding nations if he wishes, and he has no intention of stopping anytime soon, as the pursuit of magic is the only thing that truly matters to him. Now that most things in Liam's kingdom have been taken care of, he finally decides to return home after quite some time. Upon arriving at the guild, he is immediately confronted by Jody and Asuna, both of whom are quite upset with him for vanishing for weeks without saying a word. Liam offers an apology, explaining that he had so much going on that he completely forgot to inform them. Asuna reassures him that it's not a huge issue, but what really matters is that he hands over their money. At first, Liam has no idea what they're referring to, but Jody quickly reminds him that they had entrusted him with some money a while ago. Back when Princess Scarlet first gave Liam his hush money, he had gathered Jody and Asuna for a meeting to inform them about it. During that meeting, he also intended to give them their share, which was a massive chest packed with gold coins. Asuna and Jody were initially reluctant to accept the hush money, as they literally had no no choice but to keep Liam's secret anyway. He could simply order them to stay quiet if he wanted to. However, Liam had no intention of giving them any orders and simply told them to take the money. In the end, Asuna and Jody agreed to accept it, but since carrying around that many gold coins would be risky, they decided it would be safer for Liam to hold on to it until they needed it. And now, that time has come. Liam agrees to hand over the money, but can't help but wonder what they plan to spend such a large amount on. Neither of them responds right away, but a few moments later, they take him to a grimoire shop and surprise him with a gift. As Liam examines the grimoire, he quickly realizes that he has never come across this spell before. Grateful for their thoughtfulness, he sincerely thanks Asuna and Jody. After that, the three of them return to the guild to catch up, where they learn that Liam has been busy building a nation. That certainly explains why he had been gone for so long. Now that he's back, Liam asks what they plan to do next. They have the option to either join his nation or remain in town and continue hunting. However, the choice isn't a difficult one for them. They want to go wherever Liam goes. Liam is pleased to hear their decision, but they can't return to his nation just yet. He wants to test out the grimoire they gifted him and fully master it first. Using the grimoire, he casts the spell Dust Box and, to speed up the learning process, repeatedly activates it in rapid succession until he can perform it flawlessly with no delay. Jody and Asuna are amazed at how effortlessly he masters the spell, but beyond that, they don't actually have any idea what it does. Liam explains that the spell is called Dust Box, and it is pretty similar to an item box since you can put stuff in it. But there's one key difference. Liam takes a piece of fish and places it in the dust box for a minute. After pulling it back out, the fish is completely rotten. Asuna and Jody are amazed, so they ask him if the spell is useful. But honestly, Liam can't think of any use for a spell that makes things age quickly. At that moment, Liam notices a waitress carrying some wine, and an idea suddenly strikes him. Without wasting any time, he dashes off, and an hour later, he returns with a bottle of freshly squeezed grape juice. His theory is simple. If he adds some yeast to the grape juice and places it inside the dust box for a while, he should be able to turn it into wine. They put his theory to the test, leaving the grape juice inside the dust box for 5 minutes. When they take it out, the juice has transformed into high-quality wine. The ability to produce wine in such a short time is already impressive, but the implications go even further. In fact, anything that relies on fermentation can be mass-produced using this method, making the spell far more useful than Liam initially thought. A while later, Liam takes Jody and Asuna to his house and pulls out 10 different bottles of wine. He put 10 bottles of grape juice in the dust box 1 hour apart, so the bottle labeled 10 was in there for 10 hours. The bottle labeled 9 was in there for 9 hours, and so on. He wants Jody to help him taste test the wine, and she's happy to help. So she grabs wine number 1 and takes a sip. Then number 2, then 3, 4, all the way to 10. In his past life, Liam had quite a fondness for alcohol, so he can't help but feel a bit envious that Jody gets to enjoy the wine instead of him. After finishing her tasting, Jody excitedly remarks that the bottle aged for 1 hour has the taste of a 1-year-old wine, while the bottle aged for 10 hours resembles a 10-year-old wine. This confirms that every hour inside the dust box equates to a full year of fermentation. Now that Liam has figured this out, he can significantly optimize his production process. Asuna feels a pang of jealousy that Jody is the only one allowed to taste the wine. But since Jody is an adult while she and Liam are still too young, there's nothing she can do about it. With his experiment now complete, Liam takes Jody and Asuna to his nation, where he introduces them to everyone. The villagers warmly welcome them, and to celebrate their arrival, they organize a grand feast in their honor. Various species contribute their favorite dishes to the banquet. Chris serves up a plate of grilled lamb. Guy prepares roast beef, and Rihanna makes a pot of mushroom soup. Unable to hold back any longer, Asuna eagerly digs in and starts devouring the food. And before long, everyone else follows suit. The next morning, Liam takes everyone out into the nearby forest to pick fruit so he can make different kinds of liquor. They find a bunch of star fruit in the trees, so Guy and Chris begin competing with each other to see who can harvest the most fruit. But Rihanna yells at the two two of them to stop, because if they pick all the fruit now, then next year's harvest won't grow. Just then, Liam hears a scream coming from the other side of the forest, so he runs over to investigate, and to his shock, he sees a man biting one of the trolls. He uses his power missiles to blast the man off the troll, but before he could interrogate him, the man runs off into the woods. Guy approaches the bitten troll to check on him, but for some reason, Gon starts behaving strangely. He suddenly becomes erratic and, without warning, lunges at Guy, trying to bite his face. Left with no choice, Guy quickly restrains him. Though Guy has no idea what's happening to Gon, Liam suspects it might be some kind of status effect. If that's the case, then his all-clear spell should be able to fix it. Without hesitation, Liam casts the spell, removing all status effects from Gon. Fortunately, it works. Gon immediately calms down and falls asleep. However, even with the crisis averted, Liam still has no clue what originally triggered this. Jody has seen a similar condition before, so she tells Liam she thinks Gon might have been infected by a vampire. By biting people, vampires can turn others into vampires to act as their servants, and normally, nothing can be done to help someone who has been bitten. But Liam was able to cure Gon almost instantly, which is miraculous. However, vampires typically disintegrate into dust when exposed to sunlight, so the fact that the man remained unharmed suggests that a Dracula must be involved. A Dracula is a rare mutant variant, a vampire born once every few centuries. Under the influence of a Dracula's leadership, ordinary vampires gain enhanced strength, even allowing them to withstand sunlight. If a Dracula is truly at play here, then this is a serious threat. With that in mind, Liam decides to conduct an investigation so he can develop the proper countermeasures. Liam sends a scout out to look for any traces of the Dracula, but when the scout returns, he says he has bad news. He found the vampires 10 kilometers up north, but there are over 10,000 of them, and they are closing in fast. The village is vastly outnumbered, so the villagers are starting to get worried. The sheer number of vampires is due to the fact that all the inhabitants of this land have been turned, including orcs, goblins, and various other species. The fact that these vampires can roam freely in daylight confirms that an exceptionally powerful Dracula must be behind this. Normally, vampires are fairly passive and prefer to live in peace, but under this Dracula's influence, they have become aggressive and destructive. Guy says they have to prevent them from causing further harm. Jody and Asuna, on the other hand, believe confronting the vampires directly is too dangerous. While it's true that every one of them is very strong, even a single bite would infect someone and turn them into part of the vampire army. Liam agrees with this, but remains determined to take action against the vampires. He suggests that everyone work to evacuate the nearby villages so the vampire horde won't overwhelm them. Unfortunately, none of the surrounding villages took their warning seriously because vampires usually aren't much of a threat. Then, a little while later, the vampires attacked an orc village. Even though the orcs put up a good fight, they were quickly overwhelmed, so all the orcs are now vampires as well. And one more thing, while the scout was witnessing everything unfold, a vampire, unlike the others, appeared. The rest of the vampires knelt before it, and then it performed some kind of ritual to bring back all the vampires that had fallen during the battle against the orcs. Liam has no doubt that the vampire the scout saw was, in fact, the Dracula, but if Dracula has the ability to endlessly revive its vampire minions, then the only way to put a stop to this is by eliminating Dracula directly. However, with the sheer size of Dracula's army, getting anywhere near it seems nearly impossible. Luckily, Liam has devised the perfect strategy to take Dracula down, so he turns to the tribe leaders, along with Asuna and Jody, for assistance. The 5 of them end up facing the vampires in a valley, and just as the creatures are about to reach them, they all equip the armor that Leon crafted for them and begin cutting through the enemy forces. Vampire bodies start piling up on all sides. After dealing a significant blow, Guy suggests they retreat, as this should be more than enough to catch Dracula's attention. Sure enough, Dracula soon appears before them, but just as he is about to revive his fallen vampires, Liam swoops in and teleports him away. Dracula is both confused and impressed that Liam was able to move him against his will, so he asks Liam what he did. Liam explains that he teleported them 100 kilometers away so Dracula won't be able to interact with any of his kin anymore. Liam is confident that everything will be resolved once he takes down Dracula. However, before the battle starts, he asks Dracula if he would consider stopping the transformation of people into vampires so that everyone everyone could live together peacefully. Dracula outright rejects Liam's offer for peace, making it clear that he has no intention of stopping until every inferior species has been turned into his servants. With no other option left, Liam is forced to act. He launches several powerful missiles at Dracula, but even though they land directly, Dracula emerges completely unscathed. Suddenly, he disintegrates and reappears behind Liam, but Liam manages to teleport away just in time to avoid the attack. He then counters by striking Dracula with multiple holy lances, and though they pierce him repeatedly, Dracula simply disintegrates once again and reforms himself as if nothing happened. Trying a different approach, Dracula lures Liam into teleporting, then seizes him. Just as Dracula is about to sink his fangs into Liam's neck, Liam quickly switches places with a clone and dispels it to evade the bite. That was a really close call just now, so Liam is considering using his Guardian Radon armor since it would give him a huge boost in power, but it would also drain all his mana, so it is too risky to use until he is sure he can defeat Dracula. He keeps trying to hit Dracula with all kinds of spells, but nothing seems to work. Dracula tells Liam that resisting is futile because, no matter what he tries, he will never be able to harm him. As an immortal being, Dracula exists beyond the laws of this world, making him incapable of dying. In reality, his body is nothing more than a vessel he uses to absorb life force. As long as this world continues to exist, Dracula will remain completely indestructible. Liam recalls what Dracula mentioned earlier, and as Dracula grabs him, he takes advantage of this by trapping him inside his dust box. Normally, living beings cannot be placed inside the dust box, but since Dracula isn't truly alive, this rule doesn't apply to him. Now, all Liam has to do is seal the dust box and wait for time to pass until Dracula eventually exhausts all of his life force and can no longer sustain himself. Liam remains standing there for 10 hours, which means that for Dracula, a whole decade has passed. In the end, he either completely drained his life force or became so unbearably bored that he entered a state of suspended animation. Either way, Liam manages to defeat Dracula. Now that his job is complete, he makes his way back to the canyon to check on the others. Upon teleporting back, he is met by Asuna and Jody, who are relieved to see him unharmed. They figure Liam must have somehow succeeded in defeating Dracula, and with Dracula gone, he assumes all the victims should now be free. However, to their dismay, they all begin to burn away instead. Once they had turned into vampires, their bodies were maintained by Dracula's magic. So now that Dracula is dormant, they are destined to vanish. Liam refuses to let all these people die, so he begins to think as hard as possible to come up with a way to save them. It's then that he recalls how he managed to cure a Gon by using the All-Clear spell. He starts casting as many All-Clear spells as he can, and while he succeeds in saving a few of the people, there are still countless others who continue to disappear. With his single-target All-Clear spell, there's simply no way Liam can save them all. That's when Liam gets an idea and decides to put on his Guardian Radon armor for a power boost, allowing him to cast a wide area all-clear spell and heal everyone simultaneously. The entire canyon becomes engulfed in holy light, and once everything settles, all the vampires have been restored to normal. However, shortly after, Liam collapses from mana exhaustion. Liam regains consciousness about an hour later, much to everyone's relief. As they see he's doing fine, he immediately asks about the vampire's condition, though it turns out there's no need for concern since they are all in good shape now. On that note, the others are intrigued by the spell Liam used to heal them, as it's unlike anything they've ever witnessed. However, before offering an explanation, Liam requests that they gather the vampires specifically, not those who were recently turned, but the ones who were originally vampires before the whole Dracula incident began. All the true vampires are assembled before Liam, and their leader wastes no time in apologizing for all the trouble they caused. He takes full responsibility for the catastrophe and pleads only for the lives of his subordinates to be spared. However, Liam reassures him that there's no need to worry, as he has no intention of blaming any of them. After all, the real culprit was Dracula. Instead, he presents them with a choice to join his village and regain the ability to walk in daylight. Now that Dracula has been defeated, the regular vampires have likely lost their resistance to sunlight, meaning that by morning they will either burn to ash or be forced to return to a life of darkness. Understandably, the vampires are hesitant to pledge loyalty to Liam after everything that happened with Dracula. However, Liam assures them that he isn't like him. He only has two simple rules for them to follow. First, they must obey his instructions, and second, they must not create any conflicts. The vampires appear satisfied with the terms of the agreement, so they all gather to allow Liam to form contracts with them. The first to form a contract is the vampire leader, whom Liam decides to name Alucard. A few days later, Liam returns to the spot where he trapped Dracula. Since several centuries have passed inside the box without any source of sustenance, Dracula begins to fade from existence. Once Dracula has completely vanished, Liam dispels the box, finally allowing himself to relax. Elsewhere, a noble is observing footage of Liam's battle with Dracula through his crystal ball, and he's in disbelief that a single boy was actually powerful enough to defeat Dracula. This poses a problem for him, as he had intended to use Dracula as an excuse to deploy troops into the Holy Land. Now, however, he has a more pressing concern to address: the kid who single-handedly brought down Dracula. He can sense just how powerful Liam is based on the kind of magic he's using, but the video cuts off before the fight concludes, leaving him clueless about the method Liam used to defeat Dracula. The noble finds it hard to believe that a normal human could wield such strength, so he decides to observe Liam a bit longer to gather more information before attempting to lay claim to that land. When extraordinary beings like Liam emerge, it always signals a turning point in the era. Now, the question is whether Liam will become a hero or a demon lord. Back in Liam's village, he's completely worn out after the stress of dealing with Dracula, as well as having to form contracts with all 10,000 of Dracula's victims. While he managed to form the contracts, there's no way he can come up with 10,000 names right now, so he decides to put naming on hold for the time being. Just then, two slimes Liam had named approach him, announcing they have a gift for him. One of them poops out a statue of Liam. Liam appreciates the gift, so he thanks the slimes and brings them along on his daily patrol. What was initially meant to be a small village has rapidly expanded into a city, thanks to everyone's efforts to build accommodations for all the species living here. Aside from the dwarves, the elves have the most experience with construction, so Liam placed Rihanna in charge of overseeing that. Meanwhile, Guy and the other Gigatrolls are responsible for patrolling the Promised Land to keep an eye out for any threats, while Chris and the other wolves take charge of hunting for food. Everyone has their own duties, and they all put in their best effort to carry them out, ensuring that everything runs smoothly. At that moment, Guy approaches Liam with something to report. He spotted a group of humans in the forest who claim to be merchants from Quistador. They're requesting a meeting with the king of this land. Liam considers that meeting with them might be a good idea, but he quickly points out that he isn't actually a king. However, Guy doesn't understand what Liam means, as he is the master of over 10,000 powerful beings and governs the city so naturally, he must be the king. To prove his point, Guy turns to the others and asks if they also see Liam as the king, and sure enough, they all just assumed he was. Since everyone agrees that Liam should be their king, Radon decides to make it official. As the land's original owner, he formally declares that he is crowning Liam as the king of this nation. A short while later, Liam teleports to Scarlet's house to check in on her. He finds her sitting in her room, already expecting his arrival. After exchanging greetings, Liam asks if she was able to uncover any information about what the Kingdom of Jamel is planning. Unfortunately, Scarlet admits that she wasn't able to find out much, but she does know that Jamel's officials are hiding something. That's likely the reason they refuse to withdraw from the Promised Land. Even with the risk of provoking Liam's wrath, there must be something they're searching for, but Liam has no idea what it could be. So, Liam turns to Radon to see if he knows anything. However, Radon refuses to answer his question, leaving Liam with no choice but to investigate further later on. He then asks Scarlet if she would like to return to his city with him, but she declines, saying she prefers to stay in the capital and continue gathering information for him. Respecting her decision, Liam agrees and tells her he'll be heading back to the village for now, but he promises to visit her again soon. As soon as Liam returns to the Promised Lands, He immediately demands that Radon reveal what he knows, since it's clear he's hiding something. Radon, impressed by Liam's sharp intuition, decides to finally explain. He asks if Liam remembers where he first encountered the Guardian Radon and urges him to consider why a Guardian was placed there in the first place. Putting the pieces together, Liam teleports to the secret room. But even then, he still can't figure out what makes this place so special. Radon instructs him to attempt filling the room with his magical energy. Liam follows through, and after some time, a hidden room materializes. Liam descends into the room and instantly senses something familiar. It's the same feeling he gets from his magic ring. Curious, he questions Radon about it, and Radon elaborates that dragons, like himself, accumulate many intriguing items throughout their lives. This room, therefore, serves as a kind of magical library for Radon, brimming with ancient and forbidden spells. Radon had captured Liam's interest the moment he brought up ancient magic, so Liam asks him how it functions. Radon explains that the room itself is infused with magic, and based on Liam's magical strength, more and more spells will gradually become accessible to him. He urges Liam to attempt learning one of the ancient spells, so Liam starts absorbing the knowledge from the wall. However, when he tries to activate the spell, a cluster of bubbles unexpectedly materializes in front of him. Radon explains that this is actually a defense mechanism for the secret room. Until Liam solves the puzzle, these bubbles will keep appearing every time he tries to cast his spell. The only way to complete the test is to keep popping the bubbles until he reaches a certain limit. Radon encourages Liam to give it his best shot, even if it means spending weeks popping bubbles. However, Liam has a much faster approach in mind. He creates a clone of himself, and together, they unleash a barrage of fire spells to wipe out the bubbles as quickly as possible. After just an hour of this relentless assault, Liam successfully completes the test and gains access to the ancient spell. Now that he has mastered the spell, Liam decides to test it out with his clone. He instructs the clone to cast an item box and drop a rock over him. However, just before the rock can make contact, Liam activates the ancient spell, summoning an absolute force shield. The moment the rock crashes into the shield, both instantly shatter. The absolute force shield is a spell capable of entirely negating all damage from a single physical strike. It's an incredible spell, though it comes with its limitations, as it cannot block any magical attacks whatsoever. Additionally, if two physical attacks are launched simultaneously, the shield is unable to stop the second one. However, even if the absolute shield only blocks one attack, Liam can simply cast it multiple times in succession, rendering him nearly invincible against physical assaults. There's also a spell known as Absolute Magic Shield, but it's located on the second floor of Radon's den. This means Liam will have to work hard to increase his magic power and break the second seal to access it. However, after thinking it over, Liam realizes that since he has already mastered the Absolute Force Shield, he's confident he can figure out how to create the Absolute Magic Shield on his own without relying on Radon's library. He starts casting the Absolute Force Shield, but this time, he sets the target for damage negation to magic. He then begins testing the spell in his imagination, continuing until he successfully replicates the Absolute Magic Shield flawlessly. Radon is left utterly speechless, completely stunned, as Liam somehow managed to craft ancient magic entirely on his own after using it for just 2 minutes. In the centuries since Radon created his library, no one had ever managed to break the first seal and gain access to it. But Liam not only accomplished that, he also managed to create ancient magic purely through intuition. Liam then moves on to test the new magic shield with his clone. He instructs the clone to fire several powerful missiles at him, and he effortlessly blocks each one with a shield, since he takes no damage at all. It's clear that the shield works flawlessly, leaving Liam satisfied with the results. Now, there's only one thing left to do. Liam steps into his pocket dimension and summons a shade spirit to plunge the area into complete darkness. Radon, puzzled, asks him what he's trying to achieve. Liam explains that he wants to train himself to sense the presence of magic more effectively. By doing this, Liam will always be able to determine whether an incoming attack is physical or magical, ensuring he can deploy the appropriate shield at all times. Radon questions why he's going through all this effort, since he could, in theory, simply cast both the Force Shield and the Magic Shield simultaneously. However, Liam finds that approach inefficient, and his passion for magic runs too deep to accept such a foolish solution. Watch this next video on screen and subscribe to not miss next part.